The content on YouTube is very different to the content that I provide in premium, and that's because in YouTube I have to serve the algorithm. I have to keep your attention by putting a lot of effects, a lot of music on the video. I have to also discuss topics that people actually search for. But when it comes to the things that really matter, when it comes to finding out how to beat the system, how to not fall behind, I leave this kind of content that's a bit more analytical in premium. Now in this video, I want to give a bit of a teaser. I published a tutorial called Winning in Our Monetary System. The video is 36 minutes long. And I want to share the first half of this video for free on YouTube today. Welcome to another premium tutorial. In this premium tutorial, I do not want to talk about the intricacies of DeFi or how to beat the market with on-chain analytics, etc. I want to take a step back. I want to talk about our monetary system. I want to talk about how money is created, how money is expanding, and how we are all falling behind because of this if we don't know how to play the system. And I also want to become a bit personal here. We all feel to a degree that things get tougher over time, right? How we are all falling behind. And I've seen this live with my parents. My parents moved from East Germany to West Germany just before the wall fell in 1989. And my mother was a dentist with her own clinic. My father was an IT consultant. They are now both retired. And at the beginning, when we started out, the family had a very, very nice income. As in, we would travel far abroad. We would go to the Canary Islands, etc. with the entire family, 5-star hotels, 2-3 week vacations. We had a very, very nice lifestyle. What we then noticed is that over the years and over the decades, that lifestyle tended to decrease, both for my mother, but also for my father. And my mother still had the clinic, right? She had the same number of patients. She also kept pace with the development in technology, in dentistry, etc. My father also continued to learn new things in IT. But because IT got tougher over time and it was less and less companies that actually outperformed, and because of monetary expansion and the prices didn't keep up with monetary expansion, both incomes went up in US dollars, but they didn't go up in purchasing power. And so then after 10, 20 years, we rather had vacations within Europe, right? We wouldn't travel that much anymore, and we wouldn't drive necessarily BMWs or Mercedeses anymore, but rather Volkswagens and Audis. So this is real tangible impact, long-term tangible impact. And because it's so long-term, most people don't really notice it. The person that had the clinic before my mother, right? My mother bought it from that person. The person that had the clinic before that dentist, he had multiple houses across the globe. My parents, in the end, they only built one house. It's a nice house. It's a house next to the lake, but still they just built one house. It's even harder for the current generation to build a house next to the lake. It might be even harder for the next generation, for our children to do this. Maybe they're even struggling just to buy an apartment. And the reason for all of this, I strongly believe, is not because my parents got lazy or because our generation is more lazy than the previous generation. I believe it's all just because of monetary expansion. What we see here behind me is USM2. It's the US money supply, but it's pretty much the same across the globe. You've got the same in Europe. You've got the same in countries in Asia. Fiat currencies increase exponentially over time in their circulation. And we are going to talk about the issuance process as well. But this here is a logarithmic scale, right? We can look at this in a linear scale as well. We can see very nicely how the amount of US dollars is increasing over time. This is now in the US. Let's go back to logarithmic, because here we can really see how constant that expansion is. Sometimes the expansion isn't as fast as other times, but still the trend is very, very clear. Let's take 2 data points. Let's take the first data point at the beginning of our time series. So that's over here. In 1959, how much money was floating around? It was roughly 286 billion. That was all of money there was. So let's put this in our Excel sheet. We actually do get a bit technical, but that's simply just to prove a point. I'm not necessarily focusing on the technicals here. So this is dollars, this is thousands, this is millions, this is billions. Then let's look at the data point today. We are now looking at 20.963 trillion. So let's hack that in. A trillion happens after the billion. We are now in 2024. We are at 20.963 trillion. So this is the number of billions This is the number of millions. This is the number of thousands. And this is the number of dollars. Again, let's format this nicely. There we go, 20 trillion. So how much did we grow per annum? Let's look at the factor first, right? The growth factor. How much bigger is the current number to the previous number? It's a factor of 73. And let's now annualize this. How do we annualize this? We take the factor and we put this to the power of the number of years. How many years do we have over here? Let's simply subtract those two numbers and see our annual factor. So to the power of 1 divided by the number of years. So per annum, the US money supply grew by 6.8%. This is a very, very important number, those 6.8%, because it is relatively constant, right? Sometimes we accelerate, sometimes we decelerate, but this is such a long-term chart that 6.8% is also a somewhat reliable number, at least over those long time frames, right? We are talking not about short-term speculation here. We are talking about investing. And with investing, we are considering 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And over 30 years, 6.8% per annum monetary expansion matters. Now, before I talk about the reason why this money is expanding and who's benefiting from all of this, let's first talk about the implications. 6.8% is what the money is expanding. Now, the official inflation rates are, of course, much lower. Official inflation rates are somewhere between 2 and 4% per annum most of the years. And so, how come that the inflation rates, they are officially measured, are that much lower compared to the money supply? I believe, of course, parts of it is manipulation, as in the government wants the inflation rates to be low, but also, and that's probably the main reason, it's technological progress. As in, it becomes easier and easier to build that TV. It becomes easier and easier technologically to create the food, etc. Right? We do have technological progress, and because of that, the goods should become cheaper over time. They do not become cheaper in practice. They become more expensive. They don't become more expensive, though, with a factor of 1.068. So not by 6.8% per year. They become more expensive slightly slower. Because again, if there wouldn't be any monetary expansion, we probably would see the bread and the TV, etc., getting cheaper per year by 3 to 4%. And so this then also explains that in areas where we do not have technological progress, or where we've got just a constant supply, why those kind of things tend to go up over time, right? Why does the Picasso painting go up over time? Why does the house go up over time? Why does the Rolex watch go up over time? It's because there is limited supply. It's because the supply expands by less than 6.8% per annum. And it also explains why the Picasso painting tends to outperform, say, your property. Let's look at this in a bit more detail, right? The reason why houses are going up in price is not because they go up in value. The reason why they go up in price is because there is more dollars. In value, they actually go down. Let's crunch the numbers. Let's have a look at the median sales price. The median sales price of houses sold in the US. Let's take our magical Excel sheet again and let's say US houses. Let's maybe reformat this a little bit. Right here that this is from to. Have the factor here, have the annual growth, and then we can add another line. US houses started with 17,800. That was in 1963 and is currently at 421,421, which is annual growth of only 5.3%. So what's the delta here? How much is a house actually losing value? Roughly by 1.5% per year. And this now totally makes sense, right? You rather want to live in a new house than in a house that was built 30 years ago. The house 30 years ago still has value, but of course the value went down. It went down now mathematically by 1.5% per year. Again, the price went up, and the price went up because the dollar devalues. So those are the interesting things we can now explain, right? When people say, I invest in a house because houses appreciate, this is a very wrong way to think about this. You're not investing in a house, you're still consuming by buying the house. You're losing 1.5% in purchasing power per year if you simply just own the house outright. But the price of the house is going up. It's going up less than monetary expansion. You're still losing purchasing power versus other things. But it does feel like you're getting ahead, especially when you've got leverage. Now, there are some ways to play this game as well and how to win from the system and who's winning from all of this. But again, let's further continue with the knock-on effects because there's simply just so many implications of this. I didn't tell you the story of my father and my mother because I simply just want to share a personal story. It's also to make this a bit more relatable. Let's have a look at the average household income. Now, our household was not average whatsoever, but let's just have a look at the average. If you want to, you can also calculate the numbers for all the other households, maybe for the household that more applies to you. But have a look at this. This comes from taxpolicycenter.org, which in turn got the numbers from the US Census Bureau. And let's check this out. This goes from 1967 to 2020. So we can already put this in. Let's actually run all of the numbers. Why not? So 1967 to 2020. And let's look at different households. Let's look at the super average household. The middle quintile has a mean income in 2020 of $74,000. Okay, so if you are above that, then you earn more than the average household. I believe that's probably the majority of the people watching here. So congrats to you as well. Let's also look at the top 5%. So the mean, so it's actually not the median, right? But the mean in the top 5% made $500,000 in 2020. Since there is skewness to this, you're probably rather in the top 2% or top 1.5% if you earn $500,000. But yeah, let's go with this, right? Let's go with $500,000. Let's also reformat this a bit nicer. So we have median, household, and we've got top 5% household, or rather probably top 2 or top 1.5%, right? But you know what I mean? A very nicely earning household versus just your average Joe household. And let's compare this with 1967. The top 5% at the time made $28,110 and the middle quintile mean made $7,080. Let's calculate the growth factors. There we go. The median household grew their income by a factor of 10.5. The top 5% had a faster growth, but again, let's look at the annualized growth. It was 4.3% per year. For the median, it was 5.3% or 5.4% for the top 5%. Let's actually reformat this a little bit to make this nicer and more visible. So we've got this actually as percentage points. There we go. Here are the growth rates. And I'm very sorry, I just noticed while I recorded this that the window was not visible. So there we go again. This is USM2. This is monetary expansion, 6.8% per annum. This is houses growing by 5.3%. This is the median household, your typical Joe, growing by 4.4% per annum over very long periods, right? We're not just talking few years here. We're talking about the long-term trend. This is 2 generations. And we're talking about the mean of the top 5%. And since there's skewness, this is probably the top 2%, top 1.5%. If you're currently earning 500K in your household, you are in there. And those kind of households, they grew historically their income by 5.4%. Now, why is this so interesting? It's super interesting because, again, monetary expansion outpaces all of those incomes. And yes, I grew up in an above average household in terms of income, and still we were falling behind, and it is visible in those numbers. Because just have a look at the delta, right? Let's say you are in the top 5%. Let's see how much this actually impacts you per year. And let's now take this number, let's take the growth factor and get this to the power of 30. Real purchasing power decreased for the top earners by 1/3 over the course of one generation, over the course of 30 years. Capital concentration is a thing, and capital does not concentrate towards the people that just earn the most. Labor devalues over time. capital concentrates in the hands of the people that have capital. Or should I rather say the people that have debt. But let's first think about all of the implications. If you currently stay at your job and you don't get a promotion and you get an inflation adjustment, chances are you don't get 6.8% on average every year. Chances are you get less than that. That means you are falling behind, and that compounds very significantly until it's really tangible in your lifestyle. If you do get regular promotions, or if you do jump from job to job, you can potentially just keep up with the monetary expansion. So you can simply keep your lifestyle. As in, if you currently drive a BMW, you have one car, you've got one house, and you say job hop every 2 to 3 years, you're probably still at that level 10 years from now. If you get, say, a 10-15% raise when you job hop every 3 years, right? So in order to beat the system, one has to change careers entirely, or has to really step up, or has to become self-employed, or has to create a company, or whatever it is, right? You have to do something fundamentally better in order to get ahead. You can't just progress in your career in absolutely most of the cases, right? We have seen the top 5%, or even the top 2% rather, they are falling behind monetary expansion year over year. So if you want to buy that Picasso painting, if you want to buy that Rolex, if you want to buy that beachfront property, or you want to pay for that education, that exclusive education that only few people have access to, this is getting out of your reach year by year. If you want to get exclusive medical treatment, that is also growing, at least with monetary expansion. This is getting away from you more and more year by year. Yes, you can buy the TV, or you can then buy 2 TVs, but the things that really matter actually, and that is housing and education and medical care, those kinds of things get further and further out of reach if you're simply just staying where you are. The system is working actively against you. This is so important to understand. Most people don't understand it, and that's why the system can run the way it does. Now, yes, you came to crypto in order to make money, in order to speculate on meme coins, etc. You might have also come from the background of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin fixes this, and to a degree this is right, because Bitcoin doesn't expand as quickly. It only expands by 0.8% per annum, and it does over the long term protect us 100% against this fiat inflation. But on the other hand, I also want to talk about how to actually benefit from all of this. If most people are suffering, even the top 2% of earners are suffering from this, why does this system exist? Who is benefiting from this, and how can we become beneficiaries? The answer, I believe, is in cheap debt. And that's why I believe a lot of countries are also getting into more and more debt. They're getting into more and more debt because it is pretty much free money for them. If you can finance your debt with 4 or 5%, but you expand the monetary base by almost 7%, you're actually getting 2% free money with every dollar that you're borrowing. Now, the big thing though is that you have to buy something with that borrowed money that does not go down in value, or that goes down as little as possible. That's why so many people make money with houses. Houses in real value go down by 1.5%, but 1.5% is still less than 6.8%, which is the monetary expansion. And so you do make money if you've got cheap debt. Now, what is cheap debt? Cheap debt is all debt that is cheaper compared to monetary expansion minus the devaluation of whatever you are buying. So let's make this a bit more analytical again. Let's say you are buying a house and it goes down by 1.5% in real terms, because the house only goes up by 5.3% per annum and USM2 goes up by 6.8%. The value of your house goes down by 1.5. If you're financing your house for less than 5.3% per annum, you are making money. Or should I rather say you gain purchasing power. So you have to think about what can you actually buy that does not devalue over time, and how can you get the cheapest debt possible. And of course, on top of that, you have to make sure that you can serve that debt, right? But the people that have most cheap debt, they are the ones that benefit. If you got something out of this video, feel free to check out Premium. The first week is completely risk-free. So there's a 100% money back guarantee. If you don't like what you see, simply just message me. I'll refund you no matter if you pay with credit card or via crypto. So looking forward to seeing you in the Premium chats. The link is down below. It's thebitcoinstrategy.com. Cheers.